Good afternoon, friends. Stephen Benoon with Israeli News Live. Today is May the 1st, 2025, and we have with us today again our very special guest, Deborah Tavares. Deborah, welcome to the broadcast.
Steve, thank you so much for having me on today. It is Mayday, and this is a Mayday alert to prepare to survive as long as possible. And I certainly hope that everyone hears this information far and wide, because we're going to cover many things that are diabolical and with some ideas around it, but more importantly, to give you the information so that you can create your own workarounds as long as possible, but do something. So I want to go over a couple of the topics that I'll be covering today. I'm going to be talking about the power grid. That would be the electricity, the water, and the gas. That was built to fail. Remember, the smart meters that control that were all designed by Rothschild, and they assigned many agencies to come into the United States to fulfill the privatization of all water, all power, and gas. And we covered that in our last video. I know it was long, an hour and 40 minutes, I think, but I go and I list the names of the agencies that were created here in the United States. I'm not going to backtrack into that information because we're moving forward. I'm also going to be talking about the planned water shortages that are happening worldwide and what that looks like. I will also be talking about gamma radiation and cesium-137 and other things that I'll be discussing in the midst of all of this. So I want to first go over the fact that here in Northern California, where I am watching schools closing down by the droves. I am watching budget shortfalls in the county and in the cities where they are preparing to reduce fire and police. And the reductions are horrific for the firefighting efforts that, of course, is the illusion that we need in California. You don't fight microwaves with water and firefighters, sadly. But they are also eliminating our ambulance giant is going to exit our region, the ambulance service. And on top of that, Steve, we've talked about the surveillance system, the FLOCK, FLOCK surveillance system. And that we discussed in the last show as well. But before I dive deep into the deep of it all, I want to go over something that has just been brought to my attention. I was talking to someone that is cleaning gutters here in the Sonoma County area. And there's these little brown dots all over the sidings of houses in many areas. So to describe these brown dots, it would be larger than a pinhead, about the size if you had a felt pen with a larger head on it, about the size of that, but instead of black, it's brown. And they said it was fungus, and that fungus was coming from the malt, the wood malt that had not been recovered by newer malt, and the fungus is everywhere. Well, I actually did some digging, and I also talked to my dear friend Alana Freeland about this fungus. And here's what I now know. This is synthetic nano fungus, and it's coming from the overhead aerosol spraying. And what is happening is in the nano size, you don't see it. But these the nanotech assembles and it collects and it swarms. And then we can see it and it's visible. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing assembled nano biofilm assembled in the dots on the houses now. And this is being created by various university labs throughout the United States and more. And I want to, it's been suggested, or what we're told, is that this clogs our pores so our skin can't breathe. And it has been recommended, and this is not my recommendation, but I am sharing with you that part of your bath, that taking a bath to soak in, should not only have salt and other things, but it should also have borax, that the borax helps to unclog the pores in our skin. So do your own research on that. I also want to talk about a new fungus that they're now calling valley fever. And it is literally erupting in central California, valley fever. And it is causing lethargy, certainly flu-like symptoms, and I'm understanding it's causing more devastating effects than that, but I'll let all of you look that up, valley fever. Everything is surrounding fungus now. And I talked to a roofer today who has enough contracts to last for a couple of years to remove and replace roof material because of fungus. And what they're doing with drones, Pacific Gas and Electric, what Pacific Gas and Electric is doing, which is Rothschild, all your utilities are run by Rothschild. They're going overhead and identifying fungus on roofs to see how successful their fungus spread is. And then they're contacting the insurance companies, and the insurance companies will not renew coverage unless the roofs are replaced. Now, for many people, that is a very expensive replacement cost, and many people will likely lose their homes if they cannot get insurance. And all of you have heard about the difficulty of getting insurance. I'll throw this in. We now just have new fire maps, and the new fire maps are showing the areas most likely to burn. Those are going to be the areas where insurance will be denied. We know that all the burning, all the storms, all the tornadoes, all the winds, all the rain have patents. And Steve, we've covered that in our two last shows. There's patents, all of that. We also know that all of the lithium-ion batteries are causing fires, including the smaller lithium-ion batteries in your smart meters.
What?
And not only, I'm sorry, Steve?
Deborah, you sent me a video that I watched that was horrendous on how lithium-ion batteries are made. But if I'm not mistaken, that was in China or someplace, one of these.
Malaysia.
Malaysia, okay. And, when I saw that, I didn't even want to own a vehicle or gadgets that are ran by lithium-ion batteries. That is the dirtiest, filthiest place, polluting, killing people that work there that you could ever imagine.
That's right. And so the green, all the green, transformation is death. It's death. It's all death. It's based on death. And people think they're helping the earth. They're not. They're killing all the people. And maybe many of them have a desire to reduce the population, but that's happening on multiple levels. And yes, thank you for bringing that up. I'm hoping that YouTube video I sent you, Steve, is now posted on my website, stopthecrime.net. I'm hoping that it's posted there. I would urge all of you to go to stopthecrime.net, go to the new videos. I am trying to post. I am having unbelievable connectivity issues. Not only is my internet down, and has been, not only is my landline down, which I also want to say this, AT&T is eliminating all landlines. All landlines. Now, I know that there are a number of people that live in rural areas. They might have some disabilities. They need a landline, and maybe they can ask for it on a preliminary basis while they're taking them all down, but they don't care. And they will be going down. There won't be landlines. Why? Because they need all of us on cell phones to connect to the digital world we're moving into, and to connect to increased frequencies and to the flock surveillance system for pre-crime and remote medical intervention. And that is why we're seeing many of our urgent care centers closing down in rural areas, Steve, because everything is going to be remote, and you will be given medicine remotely. And we know that we're being transitioned into something not human. I've referred to Alana Freeland's book many times. I will again, because it's so important to understand our reality and what we do. And I think as I roll into this nightmare, I think that there are many ways to look at this without fear, although it is scarier. It is very scary, Steve. I have no other words other than it's horrifying.
Yeah.
But Alana wrote a book called Geoengineering, Transhumanism. And it's how the environment has been weaponized by chemicals and electromagnetism and nanotechnology for synthetic biology. So when I mentioned the biofilm as synthetic technology, it is synthetic technology, and it self-replicates. So I'm just looking at a book right now. I'll just throw this out there. It's called Let There Be Light. It is a book about light, a practical manual for the spectrum chrome therapy. Understand, light now is being used as a weapon. It is also used for health and medical purposes as well, but it's largely now being used as a weapon, sadly. I also wanted to discuss what you're going to be seeing in your cities. Don't think of this as just only being in California. That's a sad mistake that people make. I want to talk about, I talked about this, I think, before, Steve, but for those of you that don't know what a blue zone is, you need to look that up. There are at least a dozen areas in the world that are blue zones. What do blue zones mean initially? Areas where there's the longest longevity, people that live over 100 and are still functional and viable. And what allows that to occur that way is called network and community. Now, I've watched a number of the blue zones and how they function, particularly in the Greek islands. And they're there with multiple family generations. People are creating their own food. They're becoming self-reliant with their food production. They'll raise chickens and vegetables and goats and all of these things. The younger generations will do all the farm work. They'll collect and they'll bring much of the collected and harvested goods to their home. And the older folks will prepare meals. And so with the participation that the older folks get to participate in, they survive much longer because they have purpose. And I wanted to say that they're now talking about creating blue zones here in the United States. They've identified about 78 states where they will create blue zones, but there's a catch. These blue zones are within the smart city sphere. They're talking about how they will create health in a walkable environment where you live, work. That is UN Agenda 2030. So they're creating these blue zones to create the illusion of health when they have you in a lockdown with unsurvivable levels of frequency speed. And that's what the blue zone creation in the United States is about. It's being hijacked. So I want everybody to know that. But look at the blue zones as they exist in a number of areas worldwide, Costa Rica. There's many locations. They're beautiful zones, but it's not what the United States will be creating for us. we're being moved into slaughter cities. They will no longer need to condemn our properties through eminent domain. They're doing that through weather weaponization and cutting off our water, and of course, turning off and cutting off the power grid. So I wanted to then jump into this. I just really, it's heartbreaking for me to do this, Steve. I feel everybody that's listening, because I hear myself, and I know I say this often, I hear myself say these things, but it's all documented, it's all evidence, and I'm just going to share it because everyone needs to decide for themselves how they're going to handle it. Okay, I'm going to start out because, Steve, I sent you a video, and it was entitled 600,000 homes are going to be without water in Northern California.
Yeah.
And I'm going to describe this. So we have some reservoirs just north of Santa Rosa, California, that were built in the 1930s by Rothschild, by PG&E. There are a couple of reservoirs and a large holding area. And all this is fed by the Eel River. Back in 2002, Pacific Gas and Electric was talking about how this would all be shut down. Now, everyone that's reporting on this now is saying that all of the shutdown came to light in around 2016. They don't have the documents that I have. I did a video back then, and I hope it's still around. It's called Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Control. And I inserted all that information in that PowerPoint I did that is a quasi-movie. Having said that, they're going to be shutting down the water. They have appealed to the Trump administration in hope that the Trump administration would come in and help potentially retrofit this system. But PG&E has said it needs to be shut down because it is not earthquake retrofit. Now we know we have the patent on creating earthquakes, right, Steve? You've seen those.
Absolutely, we do.
Yeah. So if PG&E does not get their way with shutting this down, and which will cost millions, and literally defer the shutdown costs on all the water ratepayers here in the county. Okay? They want all of us to pay for the shutdown to have no water.
Now, Deborah, is that in Northern California or is that Southern California?
That's in Northern California.
Do you know there's an article from 2018 that they had 600,000 without water in Baja California?
Well, I know that. This is happening worldwide. We also have a dam, they're calling it a dam reduction of water in the dam. It's going to only contain 25% of the water it's always had. That is in Georgia, in the United States right now. And many people have relied what they thought was a lake. People think when they hear, I live near a lake, they don't check to see if it's a dam or a lake. Usually, and when I mean dam, I also include a reservoir. Because they call them lakes, even though they are not lakes. They are reservoirs. They're water containment. They're cauldrons of poisons and toxins that are being delivered to the homes and downstream and killing the fish. They're heating all that water up with microwaves and taking out the oxygen, which is also another reason that we're having toxic algae blooms and why we have so much fungus. But I sent that to you, and it was an appeal to the White House for help, and that now has just been denied. I was reading that the White House is stepping aside on this one, and I was waiting to see if the illusion of the White House stepping in, what would happen. I thought one of two things could happen because, Steve, we both know that the United States was bankrupted in 1933, and we are and have been under a dictatorship.
Yeah.
And all agencies and all levels of government are in a de facto government system, and they're serving the bankers and the IMF and the United Nations. We don't have the country that we thought we had. So I thought it was interesting for those people here to be advocating the White House for help to not lose the water supply. Now, we're talking about the heart of Sonoma County, which is known as the wine country. They're going to gut the economy, absolutely gut the economy, and eliminate the water use. Now, they still say that from one of the reservoirs that they're not taking out, one of the reservoirs, that people will still in some areas have about 17% water left to use. That will only allow hygiene purposes, and it certainly won't allow outside landscaping. But people are being told to use gravel on the outside of their home and plastic grass, artificial turf, because they need to reduce their carbon footprint and reduce carbon. And we're eliminating oxygen. I don't know how on earth people are going along with reducing the oxygen as an idea for climate change. Steve, do you understand that at all?
It's like it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard to begin with. It's kind of like where they say the cows flatulating caused the ozone layer to disappear. But I can't help but wonder if this may be a part of a justification for all the wars.
Well, I think it is. Absolutely. Because we were told that it would be a combination of multiple different types of omni-attack, omni-warfare to move us into the New World Order. And that's what we're fast descending into. And by many people's understanding, we're there. They're just doing mop-up now. But we also know that we've had mind control techniques used on us for decades. Most people are not able to participate in any thought around these issues. So I hope those of you that are listening understand. And if you are able to understand, then you are not perhaps completely mind controlled yet. But I wanted to go into the power grid because I have been experiencing lack of cell phone usage as well. Now, I'm going to recommend that all of you, I've said this before on shows, but now you must really consider doing this. Tape all of your light switches off so you can't inadvertently flip them on. Also, then pretend, do that for about 3 days. You have no electricity. Without electricity, you have no water usage. Don't argue. Just don't use any water. Nothing. You can't flush your toilets. You can't take showers. You can't draw from the tap. Your refrigerator has no power, and you have no cell phone coverage because we're seeing cell phone disruption all over the world. And Steve, we just witnessed the grid down in parts of France and Spain and Portugal.
Yeah.
And some of those areas right now still do not have electricity, and they have no cell phone coverage.
And what is it about when they have, I assume the grid down, when it goes down, that affects the cell phone towers themselves.
Well, there's no chargeability, and yes, it does. And what we're seeing is the weaponized weather attack. That is taking out cell phone towers. When we had our fires here in 2017 in Northern California, as people were evacuating, they had no cell phones. Many of the fire areas are certainly in the same condition without coverage. That was the same situation in many of the areas in Los Angeles County in January of 2025 when they burned that up. So I want to talk more about the illusion that we're in. And I really liken it to what one of the documents that I've covered, the way in which they discuss it. And I'm going to go over that a little bit right now because I think it is important, because the last thing I'm going to cover is, as I said at the opening of the program, gamma and cesium-137 radiation. So we have to know that we are in an illusion it is so large and vast that it has escaped most people's perception. Wouldn't you agree with that, Steve?
Absolutely, it has. And and I don't want to forget, Deborah, too. And maybe this may be a little bit premature, but today happens to be, if I understand right, today is your dad's birthday. And
yes,
when we're looking at everything that's going on, Deborah, what does that mean for you? Because you told me your dad would be 100 years old if he were here with us today.
Yeah, my dad would be. I haven't told this story often. I don't remember how often. Not very often. My father was on his boat between Florida and Cuba back in 1970 when there was the embargo. And my father was in international water. They were headed on a business trip for the Hilton Hotel Corporation, and where my father worked for many years in Beverly Hills. He worked at the Beverly Hilton Hotel for Conrad Hilton and other founders of the hotel chain worked and lived, and who knew them. And he was also the chief engineer. My father was also a builder as well, a self-employed builder. But he was a Soviet submarine surfaced that day and aimed artillery at my dad. And my dad, of course, in the sales boat, couldn't argue with that because he can't outrun this, and he wasn't thinking that he should. He just figured that they wanted to see who he was and get the boat registration and documentation. And they motioned him to follow, and he did. And they took him into Havana, where my dad was then told to tie off at the dock. My father did. My father had on a pair of thongs that day, a pair of shorts, and a t-shirt. It was hot. And the other two guys also were escorted off the boat. My father never saw his boat again. Cuba is nationalized. Everything on it is owned by the government. People in Cuba can't even fish off the coastline, where they are imprisoned. Now, my father was sentenced to 4 years in one of the worst prisons on the island, narrowly surviving, almost did not survive. In fact, he went into some detail about the torture and the confinement. He was in solitary confinement in what was called G2. The first few months that he was taken off the boat, he did not know what they were going to do with him. They threatened to shoot him at one point. They didn't. It was a threat. And I was only 19 years old at the time. I knew no one whose father was held in Cuban prison. I knew no one. I couldn't commiserate with anyone. I did contact Continental Airlines, the president of Continental Airlines, because Continental Airlines was being hijacked frequently into Cuba, where the hijackers were escorted off the plane, and then Continental Airlines flew on to its destination. But I had no luck with any type of radio connectivity from the airplanes that were landing with the hijackers. I also tried to contact a priest out of South America that I was understanding was going into the Cuban prison. And I will end my story there because my dad had no help. My dad could have died there. He radioed for Mayday, and no one heard him. So all I can say is, please hear me now. I'm not under the same circumstances, but Mayday to me is a couple of times when we had our boat and we were in distress and we were issuing Mayday calls. So that's what today represents for me, as well as my father. If he were alive, Steve, again, he would be 100 years old today.
Wow.
So I want to continue on And I thank everybody for listening. I normally don't go into this story, but it's a bigger story than what I even discussed. And I will say one last concluding comment. When my father was finally released, I didn't recognize him. I was married to my husband, Lou, by then. And when I picked him up at the airport after he went through medical examinations in Florida after he was released, I would not have recognized him had I not known he was deboarding a certain flight. And anyway, I'm going to end the story there, other than they wanted to do a movie because his story and our boat journey was much bigger than just even that. So I want to go on into some of the things that we have been confronted with so that you'll understand, because we have had intentional separate fronts created for all of us to prevent us from seeing the connections with what we are now encumbered by, deadly connections. And we have been so betrayed and so deceived. And that's what really led me, Steve, on this investigation for decades, is the level of deception, the level that I felt about what I didn't know as I was discovering things. And when I go on and I now understand that they intentionally have kept our lifespans short and our minds weak, well, they've been pretending to do the opposite with medication. And they've been using their knowledge of science and technology in ways so that we never see what is really happening. Now, I will bring your attention to the Malaysian discovery of the Malaysian airlines that went missing back, I believe it was in 2014. Someone did a very, very good broadcast on that. I forwarded that to you, Steve. I've asked that be posted on my website. I want to add this. Loren Murray was a very good friend of ours who was a whistleblower of Lawrence Livermore Lab. Loren knew that was a sabotage, and she managed to go to Malaysia a couple of times with some friends to try to dig up what had happened. So the information now that's coming out, I want everybody to think of Loren, because she's now no longer with us, and she knew that it was sabotage. She didn't have the information that's now coming out, but she was digging too. And we also need to understand that they've already used soft metals and aging accelerators and sedatives in our food and water and in our air. That's already been done. And we've been blanketed by poisons everywhere. Everywhere we turn, the soft metals are causing us to lose our minds. Now, for those of you, I am looking at snippets, excerpts that I am looking at out of the Secret Illuminati Covenant, and that is posted on my website. And I've covered that before. I have a show that I did. It's called Wicked AI. And we actually read the entire thing on air. But I'm going over some of the poignant circumstances that we're in already so that we can see this has already happened. And so they say to us they will promise to find us a cure, but they will only feed us more poisons. That's been happening. They have the cure for cancer.
Yes, they do.
They have had the cure for cancer for a long time. And they say, and we talked about how the poisons will be absorbed through our skin. We just talked about the biofilm and how that's going to plug up our skin, and how this was lab created by nano. And so they say that it will be absorbed through our skin and mouth, and they will destroy our minds and reproductive systems. That has been happening. We have an enormous society of autistic kids now, all environmentally created and jab created. It represents, in fact, Steve, I went to a program in just north of San Francisco, Temple Grandin. For those of you who have not heard of Temple Grandin, you could look her up. She's a much older autistic woman, who has created cattle sheep so that the cattle are less fearful when they're going off to be slaughtered, so that they don't have as much hormone in the meat. Temple Grandin said to us that day that she had just gone to Silicon Valley and given a talk there. And she said she never saw so many autistic people together in her entire life. So
it truly is an epidemic. I mean, as many times as Yana's done interviews with different doctors over it and different possibilities of why this could be. Autism, though, one thing that's hands down the most obvious thing, Deborah, is that autism is at an unfathomable. We've never had anything like it in modern day society.
No. And I will say this with all heartfelt words. I do have a high functioning autistic granddaughter who is now 21 years old. And I don't know if she'll ever be able to live on her own, even though she's high functioning. It's just the condition of where she is on the spectrum. We're fortunate that she is higher functioning compared to autism that is nonverbal, a real problem for the family. But they go on to tell us that they will teach us poisons are good for us with fun images and musical tones. Aren't we seeing that in all the ads? Yes, we are. All the candies, all the poisons. Then they say, we'll look up for help. And they will enlist people to push their poisons. So we're talking about the commercials, those that advocate the commercials and pushing the poisons. And they say that that we'll see their products being used in film, and we'll grow accustomed to their products, and we'll never know their true poisonous effects. And that is true. When we give birth, they will inject poison into the blood of our children and convince us that it is to help them. That is being done. That is being done. In large contribution to the autistic spectrum, also, I will add. And they will start early on with our young. They have been. They have been. And they will target our children and what our children love most, sweet things. So I can say to you right now, being that we know we're being targeted with sugar and all of the toxins that come out of sugar, the sucrose and all of the other lab-created sweeteners, of which there are many, they're poison. Certainly think of eliminating that now. Certainly look at what you can do right now to clean up your diet in every way possible. That would be eliminating all sugar, all flour, and fast food. We know that human flesh has been ground up and used in food for many years. We know that it's a flavor enhancer, and it's also a ritual abusive program of us becoming cannibalistic. And when I used to do shows regularly with Dr. Bill Deagle on the NutriMedical Report down in San Diego, he talked about what the causes of cannibalism does to society. It makes people very, very angry, and it rewires the brain. Now, there are many things now that can increase anger, not only the cannibalism that we have in our food supply, but also the frequencies and the illnesses. People aren't feeling well, and people are getting more desperate and becoming more angry. And so they also told us that there would be massive tooth decay, and they would fill our teeth with metal. And they did, and they have. And that will kill our minds and steal our future because they move those metals into our brains. We know that.
Yeah.
And that we would be so affected by all their intentional poisonings, we wouldn't be able to create. We would be rendered docile and weak. And haven't we been rendered docile and weak, Steve?
That's exactly right. I mean, when I was young, Deborah, and you've probably heard this as well, my grandmother used to always say, every generation is weaker but wiser. And well, they're wise enough to know how to make you weaker is what it really comes down to. I don't know where she got that from. She used to say it was Bible. I don't really know of that, but you know, but it is true. They're wiser, but wise enough to know how to hurt and harm humanity.
Well, um, so beyond rendering us docile and weak, and educationally, um, literally programmed to a reality that doesn't exist, because we live in an illusion. Again, we're in a dictatorship. And many people are now growing extremely depressed and very slow in movement and obese. We have an enormous obesity problem, but they've come in with the answer. Take pills and join a gym. Most of the gyms I see have cell phone towers on them. So you're getting zapped and radiated while you're working out, trying to reduce pounds. There are many other ways to look at food reduction and health, but certainly you need to understand the degree of poisoning and make your own decisions on cleaning yourself up now, because you're in a war zone, you are at war, and it would be best not to be slow, obese, and depressed while you're in the war. And they said that they would focus our attention on money and material goods. That has happened. That we would be distracted by fornication, external pleasures, and games, so that we would never know that we are really, truly all one. Our minds would belong to them. They do. Our minds belong to those rich men that are in control. And they will use fear as a weapon. Yes, they are. Now, I know that
Deborah, can I ask you real quick, especially because that is such a fascinating statement that you've just made, and it really resonates with me when you said, like you said, the adultery, the pleasures, the sins of the world, as we would normally say, but you made the very profound statement that it would cause us not to know that we're all one.
That's right.
That is
That's right.
so profound.
Yeah.
And really and truly, that is the ultimate goal of the most demonic forces. And it really comes down, I mean, this is even what Jesus, when he made his statement, in that day you'll know that I'm in, let's see, I am in the Father's in me, and I am in you, and you are in me. But that's a collective.
Mm-hmm.
And that just really caught my attention. I hope people, as you're listening, you really think about that. And it's exactly what it is. It's to distract you with every. I mean, we're the most pleasure mad world there ever was. And if you look at some of the ancient documents that never made biblical canon, that was one of the statements that was made, was to distract man with pleasures and eating and just enjoying this world, never to know who you really are.
Well, you know what is also legal is the pedophilia. It's legal.
Oh, isn't that horrible?
It's legal to traffic children. It is all legal. All of the vile ugliness and torture and treatment of humans is legal, or it would not be happening. It wouldn't be happening. So let's go on. We were told in this document, and you now know that we are in a dictatorship and the United States was bankrupted, but that they would establish our government and establish both sides within our government. Certainly they have, and they would own both. So we have to understand who we think represents us. They're puppets. They're puppets to the controllers, the rich men of the earth. And I wanted to add this. I'm understanding last week that stopthecrime.net, my website, blasted out the report from Iron Mountain. I covered that ad nauseum years back. I would certainly direct all of you to go to stopthecrime.net and look up the topic blast outs and take a look at the report from Iron Mountain. And they go on to say how they would control all aspects of our life and tell us how to think and when. And they would guide us kindly and gently. And they would let us think we're guiding ourselves or not. They said that they would foment animosity, and they have. And when a light shines among them, they shall extinguish it by ridicule, death, or whatever suits them. And it's important to know that all of this has been created because we are facing what we may look at as the end of humanity as we've known it, and the transition into cyborgs and robotics and transhumanism, synthetic bodies. And this is all how it was led up to it. We covered that also in the NASA War document as well. But they say that and you brought this up earlier talking about wars, and it said they will continue to prosper from the wars and our deaths. This is all genocide. We're watching that happen now.
Deborah, the Ukraine war, Edward Fizeau, who he's a Ukrainian. He used to be the mayor of Kharkiv, the second largest city in all of Ukraine. He was a Chabad rabbi for most of his life. He's in his late 70s. I think he's about 78 years old now. He's still very active. He converted to Christianity at 75 years old, or maybe a little earlier, maybe 72, somewhere in there. But he said he released the document that the Ukraine war was planned all the way back into, I think, the 80s, in a speech that was given by the leader of that group, and how that they said they would turn the Russians and the Ukrainians against one another so that they could annihilate the Slavic people. So yes, they're prospering from these wars, and that's why you don't see any end in it. And if you look at the Club of Rome map, Poland and Ukraine and one other country there is all going to Russia. Well, Belarus is already basically there, but Poland is actually going to be part of Russia in the future.
Well, Steve, this has all happened drop by drop by drop. And we've also been told, because again, we're in a dictatorship, we own nothing, that they would take over all our land, all our resources, all our wealth, and they will exercise total control over all of us, and they do. And they will advance all that they're doing by us accepting laws that will steal what little freedom we still have. Are we not seeing laws that are being put upon us through the Delphi technique, through all of our city councils, all of our county boards of supervisors, all of the health and educational agencies, all agencies? And certainly I've said before, and I urge everyone to consider not looking at the bills in your city. Look at the Federal Register and the executive orders. The bills stem from that. I had someone contact me just the other day, and they said there are meetings in Santa Rosa, California, at the city council level, wanting discussions from people about the idea of eliminating the landline. Steve, they're already eliminating the landline.
Yes.
It's already happening. So they give us the illusion we can weigh in, but we cannot. And they talk about how they will recruit initiative and into this indoctrinated false rites of passage to higher realms, and they won't be. They go on to talk about how our minds will be bound by our beliefs and the beliefs we have established from time immemorial. And we must never know that their goal is being accomplished. So for those of you that want to read this verbatim, you can find this document called The Illuminati, The Secret Covenant. It relates to the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document that I've covered many years, that remains and is the first chapter of William Cooper's book, Behold a pale horse. It also dovetails with the NASA War document that I've had on my site for many years. Now we're going to talk about the power grid.
And before you get into the power grid, I will just quickly say I'm having a very difficult time to pull up documents on stopthecrime.net.
Okay. Well, sadly, that's not new to me. I can't even get to my own website. But I want everybody, as I said earlier in this disclosure, Steve, everyone needs to not use power, no electricity,
right, 3
no
days,
water, and no cell phone for 3 days, minimal 3 days. And make notes of what you need, because you will need many things that you likely don't have. Now let's get into the information I've been pounding out for years about the power grid.
Okay.
Because certainly we see the grid going down on a regular basis.
And don't forget about the maps and on radiation. Maybe we can go to that next or something. I don't want to get it out of order, but I just want to make sure you didn't forget that.
No, that will be the thing. That the gamma radiation and cesium-137 I will talk about last.
Okay.
Because it is horrific, and will also bring in at that time the breach of Chernobyl, but not right this second.
Gotcha.
Let's get into the power grid, because everyone needs to know, again, it was built to fail. Same with the water infrastructure, with the dams and reservoirs and the aqueducts, all built to fail. And I'll discuss some of those details, but I'm going over the grid here first, because it's really, really important to understand that most Americans are aware that the grid is aging and it's vulnerable, but few people know the real story of how the grid is going to be used to hold our country hostage in the not too distant future. It's now. This is part of the war game, cutting off power grid. So I want you all to think about literally being plunged into long-term darkness. And what would that look like? Really, what would it look like? Because it is scary to think about that, Steve. When people turn off everything for 3 days, they're going to get a sense of what it's like. And I had my cell phone disrupted several times now. So it wasn't due to a grid power outage, but I just was not able to, they were able to directly turn off my connectivity. And that was horrifying. The sense of feeling alone, not being able to call out to my husband or my family, stuff without any way, no computer, no texting, nothing. I went through that. And everyone, you all need to experience what that's going to look like and how you are going to communicate, because you're going to be in that situation. You feel really helpless when all of this goes down, even if it's for a really short period of time. And you have such an enormous sense of helplessness, because we have grown into the familiarity of being able to connect. And so it's really important. What would you do if the power went out for days or even weeks? You need to think about that. You absolutely must think about it. Because just imagine being without electricity for an extended period of time, and being without electricity because you've used up your quota. Now think about that. Why do you think Rothschild created the smart grid? Because people will be ostracized for non-compliance, and they can remotely be controlled with their usage of electricity or water or gas. And because we're going into a quota system, a digitized currency system, just like China. Now, I sent you another video, Steve. It was about the Uyghur in China.
Yes.
And if you can name that video, it's a YouTube video, so that people can watch it. I hope it's posted on my website. I think that all of you it's a must-watch YouTube video about what China has done and is doing, and is increasingly doing, to kill off the Uyghur civilization. It is unbelievable, with mass surveillance and so much more. And kidnappings at night, identifying how many people are living in a house when maybe they've only identified 3 people can live in that house. And then picking up people on the streets, they disappear them into what they call re-education camps, they're torture camps. Please watch this video. I'm hoping that you can find it.
I'm looking for it. You continue on,
Okay.
and when I find it here, I will make sure we bring it up.
Okay. So everybody needs to understand that the grid is going down. The grid is going down. So is the water system. And that's how they're going to force mass relocation. Because when certain areas have longer periods of time with grid outages, those areas will be removed to an area that may have grid connectivity. It'll be a process of refugees being relocated, because the health departments will come in and say, if you don't have electricity and water because the grid is down in your area, we can't seem to fix it, you'll be relocated for your own safety. And that is true. There are documents about that. So we need to understand that during these times of power grids down and water down, entire metropolitan areas or regions will experience blackouts. And this is a widespread emergency. It starts first by many people who live in power outage areas, rushing in panic to grocery stores and hardware stores, hoping to pick up critical supplies like food and water and batteries and flashlights and generators. You're seeing all of that happening. So consider doing all of that now. Get these things now. You need water. You need water paramount. Water is first. Also, type in and search for where water locations are for you. We're talking about brooks or aquifers that are coming up. I'm trying to think of the name right now, Steve. Bubbling up hot and cold water.
Yes, your artesian springs.
Yes, they're everywhere. We're the water planet. We have been kept in the illusion that our water comes from rain and snowmelt. That's still water. Our water comes from down below. And Paul Power, Pauer, spoke to us. We've gone on primary water drills with Paul. We know for a fact we are the water planet. We have watched the drill rigs drilling in the appropriate dowsed locations, and the water will spray up out of the ground 40 plus feet when they hit primary water.
And I can vouch for it. It is like hitting an artesian spring. You got that right, Deborah.
Yes, but these types of wells have to be developed differently than the wells that most people have, sadly. So we've got to talk about, so we rush to the stores. And then as the water and food starts to run out, many people are going to turn to looting and robbing and stealing. And some looking to survive, like hyenas, looking for the weak to prey on. This is what will happen. We're going into a Mad Max time, because I told you earlier that watch for the reduction of your fire and police in your neighborhood. This is happening with budget shortfalls. This has all been intentionally created. And they say that all of this will escalate. And we know, of course, it will. And keep in mind, our grocery stores generally only have about 3 days of inventory. And that gets wiped out within a severe weather warning. People go and they clean off all the shelves. We're now being told that some of the major box stores, because of potentiality and the effects of the taxes, will run out of storage and things because they can't bring in goods because of the tariff. So you have to think about our modern supply chain and supply lines for a minute. Many of you need to think about that and make your list. And even they're talking about, even if you only need drinking water alone, that can cause massive social chaos. somebody grabs the water and you can't get to it. So we're looking at a real calamity if you're not prepared. Don't be in the calamity.
And
Don't.
Deborah, one of the things that this is what's really weird. One of the things that I kept hearing initially when I was getting intel reports is that even the government is stockpiling massive amounts of bottled water underground. Now, are they stockpiling it or are they stealing it? Or are they stockpiling it to be able to dole it out to you when they've already intentionally blocked your way to it? And also, the Bushes, they actually bought massive amounts of land in South America there where that water was at. Yes.
Well, let's talk about that. That's an illusion because primary water can be located anywhere.
As we know from the
primary water.
Yes, and what was the guy's name over in the Middle East? Not Paul. I got Paul actually on the website for people so they can be able to see that. There you go, right there. Good friend of Deborah, Paul Power.
Paul Power, Pauer. There is a book called New Water for a Thirsty World that you can download. You should read it, and you should watch the movie, the China. Oh gosh, what is it called? It took place in Southern California, and it's how they stole and diverted the water and literally trounced all of the orange fields and stole the water supply, and it's grown into a new water for a thirsty world.
That is now a PDF, Deborah, if it's okay to say that, by Michael Salzman, is that correct?
That's correct.
206 pages. If you want, I'll put that in the description for people.
I think that would be wonderful. People should download that and understand that water is a renewable and we are not running out. I wanted to say this. Our Sonoma County Water Agency, in the midst of shutting down the delivery system to over 600,000 residents, knows that there is primary water because Paul Power drilled several wells for Sonoma Water. And he told us where they are. And they're pumping hundreds and hundreds of gallons of water a minute. And they're redirecting it to other areas, not as a reserve for us when they shut down the water delivery when they take out the dams. So this is happening. We had 3 large dams taken down recently on the California-Oregon border. What we have is we have the Native American indigenous people being told that it will allow the salmon to spawn if they can swim freely up the rivers and creeks. But the salmons are not spawning as they thought, as they see the eliminated dams that are prohibiting that, because the salmon return from the ocean and they have to swim through dead zones. Those are the entrances of the rivers and creeks that have no oxygen in them. And the existing waterways are heated up now with microwaves and have greatly reduced oxygen. The fish are being destroyed. I have talked before about the document I have, Steve, on how they will kill all animals, the wild horses, the donkeys, you name it. They talk about how they will shoot them, dart them, poison them, kill them.
Deborah, you know what this reminds me of? I mean, this is strange as you can get. When I'm listening to you say that, and I think the odd little statement that Jesus made in Matthew 24, he said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of the Man. Now, not only did he talk about the eating, drinking, giving in marriage, which is actually a really weird thing to begin with, but in the book of Enoch, it said they sinned against the animals. And sitting here thinking about what you're saying, they're going to just kill them off.
Yes. Well, people are vaccinating their animals and they're RFID chipping them. And they don't know that they are the murderers of pets they love the most.
Oh yes.
And the RFID, yeah.
Dr. Tesla in California, a good friend of mine, 40-year veterinarian, him and another vet did a case study, and they discovered the main cause of pet hyperthyroid was vaccines. And he said he stopped in his practice vaccines. He said it took about 10 years. He said, other than maybe rabies, he said, took 10 years, he said, but he has not a single case of hyperthyroid in his practice any longer.
Mm. Well, RFID tips too. People want to be able to find their animals when the people are displaced with weather weapons, but they're killing their animals with the transponding and receiving from the RFID tips. So they're usually injected in the upper right shoulder, generally, of dogs and cats. And if people want, they could ask the veterinarian to remove them. Now, it depends if they've migrated or not. I know that we had one taken out of a cat that we got from an inhumane society.
Amen.
I did not say humane society, because there is nothing humane about catching animals, completely vaccinating them, never knowing their vaccination history, and starting from zero as if they never had it, being fed food that is toxic, and then being RFID chipped. And then you go and get an animal that you love dearly and costs you a fortune as it's dead and dying. So I want to just continue a few more things about the blackouts and why everybody needs to prepare for a grid down, because it was planned. The grid down was planned and built to fail. And all of the infrastructure is at its end use. Interesting. Now in 2025.
Deborah, your audio just, you must have went to, there we go.
Of death and genocide. You found that one?
All right, what's that? Say that one again one more time, because your microphone went off for just a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just saying that we have to plan for grid shutdowns, and we have to know that the grid has been slowly collapsing under its weight for decades. And Forbes magazine said the U.S. electrical grid capacity has grown by a mere 7% since 1990. But get this, demand on electricity has expanded by 25%. Now, I want all of you to think about the horrendous power needs for the data collection centers. That's why they don't want us around. They can't run the robots and the cyborgs with the amount of electricity and water that's necessary to run these data and collection centers if we're using water too. And we know from the NASA War document and many other documents as well that we are considered too slow, too soft, too stupid. And that's why they're creating a new evolution, and we're out, because we require too much money to keep. And they go on to say that the United States power grid has had more blackouts than any other country. Now, I don't know if that's an up-to-date statement, but at the time when I was going over all of this, it was an up-to-date statement. But I would say other countries are also suffering from it. And they go on to say that the data that's released from the Department of Energy and North American Electric Reliability, forget the reliability corporation, shows that Americans face more grid failures lasting at least an hour or longer or days than developed countries. And it's getting worse. So I can't urge all of you enough to prepare for a grid down. You're gonna face it. You're gonna suffer it. Many of people already have. Look at the hurricanes, all the weapons, the hurricanes, the tornadoes, the rain events. People are losing power right all over the country. And I think that the threat around all of this is
your mic's going out, Deb. Deb, okay, now it's back on. Okay, your mic kept cutting in and out.
Okay, the threat is to intentionally melt down the electric power grid should there be an electromagnetic pulse, and that does appear to be likely. We'll see. We'll see. And I guess I would like to just conclude with the urgency of doing your power outage test. Riots and social anarchy will be driven largely by grid down disruptions and no phone connectivity. So I think I've said enough about the power grid. I want to now get into this. I don't even know how to position this other than to just say it. There's no positioning necessary. I'm going to read you an email that I sent out to a man by the name of Bob Nichols, who I met from Lorin Murray. Lorin Murray was the Lawrence Livermore Lab whistleblower. And here's what I said. Hello, Bob. This is Deborah Tavares. I need to get your latest email. I have been blocked, and the last email I received from you was January 21 of 2023. An utter upending disaster, gamma radiation in America. So I said this. Due to the extreme difficulty in my receiving incoming emails, I will give you another way in which to get me your information. I will broadcast this information as I have done in the past. So what you're going to hear me discuss right now, I have broadcasted this in the past. And I don't know what platform I was on, Steve, but I'm going to go over it right now. But I'm going to read another part of the email that I sent to Bob. I said, Bob, I am here in Sonoma County, so not far from you, since you are in San Francisco. An article in our local newspaper, which is called the Press Democrat, this past week, now this would be back in 2023. So this article in our local paper in 2023, it did a multiple part story about the Sonoma County State Hospital here in Sonoma County, California. A sister of a disabled brother discovered many years later that Sonoma State Hospital was conducting government radiation experimentation on institutionalized disabled patients. He had found evidence that her brother was experimented on, and a cover-up to hide his murder was buried for decades. This story is unfolding now. And I said to Bob, of course, it's horrid to realize just how we have all been attacked and that death is upon us all. And that's what I said to Bob. So now I'm going to go over. Bob used to issue reports of different states in the United States and the levels of gamma radiation and cesium-137. And I will tell you that the world population was estimated to be about 8 billion in 2022 by the United Nations. And the radiation contagion spreads in the atmosphere worldwide in only a few weeks. Winds and storms, of course, carry all of this tasteless poison around the world in just 4 days. So I want you to remember that. We're talking about gamma radiation.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you this. Bob said this in the report he sent me. He said, are we a dying nation? And yes, we are a dying nation. He said, in the end, the gamma radiation and its sources win everything. Worse is the inevitable, and there is no country or group that can do anything about this. Yes, he says, there is no solution to fix this. And I reported on his different levels of reports at the time. I'm looking at several areas now that he reported on: Billings, Montana, Raleigh, North Carolina, Colorado Springs, Augusta, Georgia, Little Rock, Arkansas, New York, New York, Portland, Maine, Fresno, California, Miami, Florida, and he shows over 99 entries because he had devices to collect all this information. Now I can say this, I have not been able to find Bob for a long time. And I don't know if he's just simply been cut off, but I will also tell you this. I urge all of you, when you get your utility bills, to look at the mix of utilities that your utilities are providing you. I'm going to go over one set insert that I'm looking at right now, and it says building a cleaner, safer energy future. And of course, they show wind turbines. Now we know that the wind turbines are involved in weather manipulation. And I see a photograph of that. That's why I'm saying this to you right now. And this is our power mix. And they say that PG&E, its owned generation and power purchases. And this is where PG&E Rothschild is getting our power from here, where I live. 32% renewables, about 13% large hydro, which they're eliminating by taking out dams. They're eliminating hydro production without the reservoir. And 53.4% of nuclear power. And they're getting that from Diablo. Diablo is a nuke plant south of San Francisco. And it was supposed to be decommissioned a few years ago, but they've kept it up because it's leaking and it's on a fault. They recognized that there were some additional faults that they had never realized when it was built there. They realized they had built it on a fault. And so we're in trouble. All of us were in trouble. So this is a Mayday alert for all of you to prepare to survive just a little bit longer and as long as possible. Create, if possible, a network in your neighborhoods where you are. If they don't think you're crazy, you may be alone in understanding the reality that we're in. And I, at this point, have been discouraged in trying to, what people say, wake people up, because I already realized the level of extreme mind control. We can be accessed remotely, all of our thoughts, and they can decipher all of our thoughts through Palantir, which is who Trump has on the team in Washington, D.C., is Palantir. And we certainly know that the VP was heavily invested in Palantir, too. So understand the level of attack. Understand that many of you can come up with ways and workarounds to survive a little longer. Consider all of this, please. Just please stay alive as long as you can. And I just encourage everybody to stock up so that you can be helpful to people as things continue to deteriorate, rather than to become someone that is becoming literally evil on the street like Mad Max. You don't need to do that. Just secure and prepare now and learn how to garden, learn how to potentially consider growing potatoes and raising rabbits. In fact, a while ago, and I was telling you, Steve, off air, that a long while back, Fidel Castro told the Cubans, because of going into a food shortage, that they needed to grow a lot of potatoes and raise rabbits. And so something for all of you to consider. For those of you that have pets, you may want to start raising meat rabbits. You can also raise chickens for meat for your dogs as well. You're going to need to be able to feed them too when you can't go to the market, and that is coming. Now, unless you, of course, are completely compliant, you would otherwise maybe be able to be allowed to shop for a few calories here and there. I remember when we were in Cuba, Steve, the folks there got $25 a month, and there were stores in different areas. And when I mean stores, I mean dirty old garages, dirty, dusty old garages with a few shelves with an old-fashioned scale in it. The old-fashioned scale looked kind of cool, but there was nothing to weigh. People would wait overnight, Steve, in line to try to spend their $25, and they were allowed a few eggs, a little bit of meat, some rice, and other things, if there was any there when they finally had their turn to acquire these goods.
Yes, I've heard my wife tell even these type stories, as young as she is, but yet living in the former Soviet Union. Um, the long lines, only once a week to get a little bit of meat if you got there and there was any left.
That's right. I also want to add one more thing. We have a connection out of Ukraine, and we were just recently told that the entire country of Ukraine, there was a cyber attack on all of the recorded documents of home and building ownership. And for a period of a few weeks, no one could buy or sell because no one could prove their ownership of their property.
Wow.
So I want everybody to think about that. We're hearing now about all of these different companies you can hire to make sure no one takes over your home ownership, and you find that they sold your home and you're in it. And so keep in mind, the cyber attacks can cause that to happen because you don't really own your land anyway, Steve.
No, you don't.
So
that's a difficult thing to ever truly own it. And I remember this one lady years ago, Deborah, telling me what to do. And my gosh, what it takes to get to own your own land.
Yeah. Well, I can just say for the moment, Mayday, Mayday.
Yes.
Certainly prepare as best you can immediately, and have a wonderful May 1st. And Steve, thank you for this program on May 1st of 2025. And this is Deborah Tavares. I run stopthecrime.net, primarywater.org, and toxic.org. Yeah. And I think you're putting under the show link the PDF for New Water for a Thirsty World. I think you're doing that. Is that correct? And also, please, all of you, go to stopthecrime.net. Go open up the website and find the tab that will say email blast out, because I am blasting out a lot of the things that I'm requesting and sending into the site post. And so you can catch up on a lot of prior blast outs I've done over the years. I've written many, many articles. I could write a book with all the articles that I've written from all of the documents that I have read and gone through.
Yes.
So, Steve, I really appreciate this. I know that there will be much more to report on because I am watching a cascade of laws and statutes absolutely hitting the food supply everywhere. And here in Sonoma County, we have lots of cattle ranches, lots of farmers being decimated now. And now they're wanting to know, they're coming down on wells. So for those of you, well water. So for those of you that have wells, wherever you are, wherever you're listening to this, protect your wells. They want to put smart meters on your wells. And that has been happening now. And right now in Washington State, they're telling folks they're sending out forms, and they have to fill out these forms to be able to prove that they have water rights to use the groundwater supply.
They're trying to do it similar in Tennessee, including because there's so much natural gas in the ground here too. They're wanting to charge you for using your own water and gas.
Yeah. Well, I can say this. We're going to have to man up. We're going to have to resist as we can. And for everyone, it's a very big decision on what that resistance might look like. I am not suggesting anything that is not living in right conduct, always doing the next best right thing every single day, and loving the people and folks you love the most now even more. That is critical. But if you are not prepared, you're not going to be able to help at all.
Thank you, Deborah, so much for being here with us today. And I want to tell you, people are always commenting, thanking you for coming on, thanking you for the courage that you have to share this, the years of dedication. Um, I am actually, besides, I'll put the links of some of the older broadcasts in there. Be sure, stopthecrime.net, toxicsky.org, primarywater.org. Those will be your first links in the description there, but also some of the older videos. And I am definitely going to create a playlist. It'll be called Deborah Tavares on our YouTube channel because we've done so many interviews. Jana has as well over the years. And I want it to where you can access it easier than normal, where you're not always having to look. You can go to a playlist, look for Deborah Tavares, uh, subscribe. I don't normally say that, but subscribe, hit the notification bell. They're always unsubscribing people. They just hate it when, and Deborah, I mean, do you know we actually grow about 1,000 people a week, but they unsubscribe them faster than they can sign up.
Well, isn't that the truth? The cover up and the drop by drop continuation of the genocide programs that are in play. That is what is happening. And I would recommend everybody, as long as these videos are available, please share them far and wide. Please send them out to other platforms. People need to know because so many people, Steve, cover different topics on their platforms.
Yeah.
And they don't cover the water end of things. It took me a while to learn that water was a renewable, and it came up from down below, that it was not rain and snowmelt. And Paul had to prove it to my husband and I. We went on a number of primary water drills, as I said earlier in this broadcast. But that's what it took for me to actually see it with my own eyes, because I was so skeptical. I was really very skeptical. So with that, again, I wish everyone well, prepare. Please do all you can to survive as long as possible. And Steve, thank you again.
Thank you, Deborah. You have a blessed evening, and thank you for all of you watching. It is time to get serious. And so take the appropriate measures and let's get ready. It's going to be a bumpy ride, more than a bumpy ride. So, all right, till next time, have a blessed evening, Stephen and Deborah Tavares on Israeli News Live.